Hey, what's up guys? My name's Ben. Welcome to the Swanky Productions channel, where I have been struggling to put 2 videos out a week. I know that hasn't happened in a while, but I'm going to try to keep up with that schedule. I really appreciate all you guys that watch, subscribe, and hit that like button. If you're not subscribed yet and you want to see more videos like this, it does really help me out a lot if you hit that subscribe button. This is my 2022 Gen 3 KLR 650, just the absolute base model, no ABS, nothing fancy like that. And if you guys have been watching long enough, you know that this is my second KLR 650. I owned a 2014, which would have been a Gen 2. That was the 2014 and a half, so technically it was the new edition. But there wasn't really all that much new about that bike. The Gen 3, I think, disappointed a lot of people, myself included originally. I actually have a video out there where I kind of reacted to the updates that Kawasaki made to the KLR 650 when they brought it back again here for the 3rd generation. I had hoped that this bike would look a little bit more like the T7 that I've actually got out in the trailer. When it didn't come out looking that way, when it basically just kind of looked like they slapped a little bit more lipstick on the old 80s pig here, I decided that it wasn't really anything that I was interested in. Obviously, I've changed my mind since then, and that had a lot to do with some subscribers that seemed like they really wanted to see me on this bike. I owe myself quite a bit of money here now, but hopefully we'll get that paid off so I can continue to test more motorcycles like this for you guys. An extra special thank you to the patrons. If you guys are interested in joining the Patreon, you get a few extra benefits. You can take a look down in the description. I'll have a link to that. But the kind of slight alterations that Kawasaki made from the Gen 2 to the Gen 3 are really what kind of made me want to test this bike for myself. And I'll kind of go through a couple of the things that I got excited about when I really looked into them, and a couple of things that I have really started to enjoy now that I've been able to put some miles on this bike. Like I said in the video where I was telling you guys that I was not going to buy one of these, if you squint hard enough, you can kind of see the Gen 2 looking at the Gen 3. However, I've got to say, this bike is much prettier. No offense to any of the Gen 2 owners. I really liked how I had my Gen 2 fixed up. Those bikes can look really good, but they can also look kind of goofy. They kind of get a bad rap from the people that don't really understand KLRs. And there are a lot of people out there that really don't and probably never will understand how beautiful a KLR 650 can be. Not just in the aesthetic of it, but I guess the overall feeling you get when you ride it. But the kind of beauty side of this bike is my #1 thing, not necessarily the most important, but definitely something that I really appreciate about this bike. I really think they did a good job dressing this thing up and making it look pretty cool. The frame is actually completely redesigned. Obviously that's a little bit hard to see, but the bike itself just really looks more like, I guess, what I use it for, which is somewhat of an adventure bike, a little bit more dirt oriented, obviously by the ridiculous D-Sport adventure tires that I've got on here. I've got videos for those I can link down in the description if you want to see that. The LED headlight is super nice. I really like how this bike looks. It feels like a cool bike rather than maybe kind of a goofy bike like the Gen 1 and Gen 2 were. I think the tank kind of fits into this. Obviously it's a little bit more function than it is form. I guess maybe it's a little bit of both, but this tank is actually bigger. This is 6.1 gallons versus 5.3 or whatever the Gen 2 was. And when I went to put gas in this last time, I went to clear my trip meter and thought that I made a mistake and forgot to clear it last time when I saw like 330 miles to the tank on this. Now that was blinking and telling me I needed to fill it up, so I don't know what I had left in there, but that is much more than I ever got out of the Gen 2. Now obviously the larger tank is going to play a pretty huge role in this, but my #2 thing I think kind of also plays a bit of a role into this, and that is the fuel injection on this bike. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of controversy, probably even just down in the comment section here, but there's a lot of controversy already out there on the internet about whether a carburetor is better than fuel injection. And I think if you are a real gearhead, if you're somebody that really likes to mess with stuff like carburetors, I think then yes, a carburetor is going to be much easier for you to modify. Obviously there's no way you can put the KLX needle jet kit in this bike. We're just going to have to wait for an ECU reflash, which I will be doing whenever, I think it is, Kawasaki makes the program available to the aftermarket guys to mess with and improve. So be looking forward to that if it ever actually happens. But honestly, for the average motorcycle rider, I think fuel injection is going to be miles ahead. I mean, obviously there's a reason that pretty much every industry is going to this. There's a lot of things that are nice about a carburetor, but you really just can't beat fuel injection for longevity, for reliability. I just don't really think that an argument can be made against that. I mean, I guess you can say whatever you want. Feel free to let me know down in the comments that I'm wrong, but I think this is definitely the way to go if you're somebody that does not want to have to mess with the carburetor. Now the third thing is kind of two things in one, sort of, but they both kind of work together to give you a very noticeable improvement in stability, especially riding in sand, just generally off-road, and honestly I think on-road too, even though that's maybe not as noticeable. But that is going to be the added 2 degrees in the rake of the fork, which means basically this was originally a 28-degree rake, and they brought it out to 30. That makes this bike feel a little bit more like a dirt bike, definitely adds stability. The other thing that they did was redesign this swing arm and lengthen it a bit. This also adds to the stability of the bike because your wheels are spaced a little bit farther apart. The bike's just not really as twitchy and feels a lot better off-road. It really does feel a lot lighter, I think, than the Gen 2 did. And this Gen 3 does weigh a considerable amount more than the Gen 2, but I think because of what they did with both the front and the rear, it doesn't really feel like it off-road. Now the fourth thing may seem extremely silly to somebody that has never ridden a Gen 1 or a Gen 2, or I guess rather parked a Gen 1 or a Gen 2, and that is the fact that they shortened this side stand to a point that you can actually park this bike on an unlevel surface without it tipping over, because when you put it on the side stand, it actually leans over. Anytime that I would have to park my Gen 2 off-road, I would literally have to try at least 3 times before I could find a spot that I felt comfortable leaving the bike. In fact, most of the time I would actually try to find a spot that the kickstand would sink into the ground a little bit, just so I knew that it wasn't going to come back over this way. Now the final thing is kind of hard to see, but especially if you're like me and you're interested in just the base model here, having wiring already pre-wired behind these fairings to plug stuff in is really a nice option, because you now do not have to pull the gas tank off to plug anything. You don't need to add any fuses or anything. I added this from 3D Cycle Parts. I can put a link for the video down in the description. But essentially all you had to do is pull this fairing off, and there was already bullet connectors under here to just plug this thing right into. So smooth. I believe there are also some wires just like that under here for wiring a USB port into here if you choose to do that. The Kawasaki stuff is pretty expensive. I would not go that route. I would find something else. Now, I honestly can't remember. Maybe one of you guys can comment down below, but the heated grip wire, I think, is maybe under the tank somewhere, so that kind of stinks that you have to get in there to get that. But I believe, since I'm going to be sticking the Tusk grip heaters on this bike, since these draw a low enough amperage, I think I can actually use the wiring for the USB. So that's my 5 things. If you guys have your own things that you like better about the Gen 3 or that you like better about the Gen 2, let me know down in the comment section below. If you guys want to see a video about maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 things that I liked better about the Gen 2 compared to the Gen 3, let me know down in the comment box below. Maybe there's not that many, but there are definitely a couple things that I'm a bit confused about, and I really don't know why they decided to go this route on the Gen 3 with these things. But anyways, like I said, that's a separate video. In conclusion, I would say if you are a Gen 2 owner that absolutely hates all of the things that were previously wrong with the Gen 2 that are now kind of better with the Gen 3, I would say definitely go out and buy one of these bikes. Now, that does not mean if you love your Gen 2 that I'm saying you need a Gen 3. There are some definite improvements on this bike that I really like. It definitely makes this bike kind of more of a, well, 20th century motorcycle. And it makes this bike a very attractive option, especially for people who are just kind of getting into the big dual sport / cheap, light adventure motorcycle world. And for that, honestly, you cannot beat the KLR 650. This is a great bike for that, and it's a great bike to keep and ride for the rest of your motorcycling career. I am very happy to be on another KLR 650, but this is not the bike for everyone, and I will be making a video on that eventually. The Gen 3, like I said earlier, did not turn this into a Tenere 700. This is not going to be a super smooth highway cruiser that you're going to want to ride for miles and miles and miles. It still is a vibey bike. It's definitely something that you need to consider, but it's not something that should turn you off. There are a lot of people that put way more miles, way more highway miles on this bike than I will ever put on my Tenere 700. It's just something that I think everybody needs to consider a bit when they're looking at buying one of these motorcycles. But again, I'm not trying to turn you off to these. Obviously, this is my second one. I really love them. They're a great bike, but they're not for everybody. There's definitely a select few that absolutely love these bikes. If you're one of those people, let me know down in the comment box below and try to quantify what it is about a KLR 650 that makes it so special. I think it's hard to do, and that's hard to kind of explain, and I honestly don't even know exactly what it is. These are just special motorcycles. They're just something that you have to ride to really understand. And that's all I've got for you. If you guys want to see more videos like this, like I said, I try to put one out at least once a week, if not twice a week. I definitely appreciate when you guys comment, when you hit the like button. That really helps me out. And I would really like to turn this into more than just a pastime, so I really appreciate you guys that have signed on to my Patreon. I do really appreciate that. I can't promise that I'll be doing YouTube full-time anytime in the near future, but it is a goal of mine, and I would really appreciate it if you guys would at least consider my Patreon. You can join for as little as $1 a month. As little as $1 a month? It's been a long week. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care. Stay safe. Stay swanky. Get out. Enjoy this beautiful world no matter what machine you're on.